Hello and welcome to this video and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I'm Shelby and I just really wanted to talk about Lady Gaga's Joanne today. Here it is in the flesh on vinyl. Joanne, ladies and gents. First, I want to quickly mention if you're interested, you can go ahead and check the description of this video where I have links to my Patreon, Instagram, and Twitter. So I just want to let you know that if you are interested. It's 2021 and it's been literally just over 5 years since Joanne was released, which, first of all, I did not realize it had already been 5 years. I thought it was like 3 years ago, but I knew in my head that wasn't possible, but that's just how fast the last 5 years have gone by for me. In this video, I am going to do like a mini album review on Joanne, but it has been out for 5 years, so I don't need to go so in depth about every single song. I more so want to talk about why I think this album has stuck with me for the past 5 years. I am someone that an album has to mean a lot to me in order for me to get it on vinyl. It has to have kind of a certain sound, which this is the only Lady Gaga album I have on vinyl because the sound of this album suits playing as a record, in my opinion, very well. But I also have to really love it. So Joanne's made the cut in my record collection. So yeah, this video, I'm going to talk about more so why Joanne has, in my opinion, really continued to be an album I have listened to for the last 5 years. And I also want to talk about why I think Joanne is so important on the grand scheme of all of Lady Gaga's albums. And then I'm going to wrap it up talking about what tracks I have listened to the most since the album was released. Now, I wrote a lot of thoughts on my phone because I think it's very easy to get lost in my words. And whenever I do an album review kind of video, I do want to be more concise and I want to make sure I get my exact words out. So I might be straight up reading from my phone for some of this video. Please don't judge. I just want to get it right. So now I want to go ahead and talk about why I feel like this album in particular kind of stands out in Lady Gaga's catalog for me. So first of all, I think it's very fair to say that this album is definitely one of a kind in her catalog because it's very stripped back musically and visually it's the realest form of Lady Gaga we've seen. In fact, it feels more like we're seeing Stephanie versus Lady Gaga because of just how vulnerable her visual is for the album. I'm gonna go back to the album cover, and I mean, this is not what we're used to seeing on an album cover for Lady Gaga. It's a side profile, no crazy makeup. It's just very raw. And even when you open it up, once again, very natural. I'm going to do this thing again where I'm just like, I'm going to poke my eyes over. Very natural, black and white. She's just in some jean shorts. Her hair's just tossed up in a ponytail. Like, it's just very real for her. And that's not something that happens hardly ever, especially up until this point. It just did not happen with any of her albums. I mean, think about art pop, for example. That's about as polar opposite as Joanne gets. So yeah, it was just like the realest form of Lady Gaga that she has ever shown for an album cycle. And in general, the tone of the album matches that as well because it's definitely more of a soft rock album and it just has hints of the pop that we've all known and loved from her and even like touches of Western country style music. The next point I want to make, and this one I am going to be reading a bit more from my phone, is I think it's really important to acknowledge that when she released this in her career. So she released this album after the absolute high of Born This Way, and then critic-wise, the major low of art pop. I mean, this was the follow-up to art pop, and I already mentioned that they are polar opposites. Well, I take that back. There was one other album before Joanne that happened. The album I'm talking about that was released right after Art Pop was Cheek to Cheek, and that was an album with Tony Bennett. So it was the first time that she was fully showing a totally different side from her pop persona, like intense pop persona. And instead, she went more jazz, like showed a very cleaned up jazz side of her. And not only just visually showing a different side of her, but it also reminded everyone that her talent vocally and musically is genuinely authentic and a force to be reckoned with. So then she went from jazz to this, to showing a very vulnerable version of herself. And like I said, this album once again showed that she can produce incredible music more than just the pop music that makes you want to hit the dance floor. And she, mind you, makes incredible pop music. But now she has shown yet again that she can be a chameleon and produce music that is in a different genre, essentially. The pure emotion in her vocal delivery throughout the Joanne album is gorgeous and can be truly felt by the listener. Not to mention Mark Ronson. We're going to talk about Mark Ronson a little bit because he was a main collaborator on Joanne. And honestly, this project was showing the diversity that he also can bring to music and in the different style of music that he can produce. I mean, that was her number one collaborator on this. So, and I was surprised to see Mark Ronson, especially once I kind of picked up on the style of it. So, all in all, I think for both of them, it was definitely a fun, new and exciting style of album and project for them to work on. And I think it's worth mentioning that post Joanne, the next version of Lady Gaga that we saw was her A Star Is Born era. And in my brain, Joanne and A Star Is Born are very much so hand in hand. Like, just the overall style of the music in A Star Is Born aligns very well with Joanne. It was a couple years it ended up being where I felt like we were just seeing this just way more authentic side. I don't want to say authentic because Lady Gaga is a true artist, and she looks at her persona and her outfits and her music. It's all art, and she has a vision of how it should all flow together for each era clearly. And Joanne just worked so seamlessly into pretty much preparing the public for what was to come in seeing her as an actress in A Star Is Born. I don't know if that was on purpose. It could have been on purpose. I don't know if it was, but I thought that was so nice. It was kind of just preparing the world for what was to come, because up until that point, we hadn't really seen Lady Gaga act before, and that movie was obviously such a smash hit on so many levels. I will say, and this is where I'm going to go back to reading my phone, I think when Joanne was first released, some of her longtime fans or even casual fans maybe feared that she wouldn't ever give them the kind of incredible pop she once did, like the songs from Born This Way or just any of what she had been known for up until that point. But I always felt like that this was an era she needed to explore before coming home to the quality dance pop that made her Lady Gaga. What I mean by that was, I think that on a professional sense, we all know that art pop was not very well received by the critics of the music community. And I don't know how much that affected her. I don't know how much she truly cared or not about that. But you notice that it was after art pop she took the shift in working with Tony Bennett, which was definitely more of like a passion project for her and something that she just genuinely wanted to do. And then from that came Joanne. And I think it was kind of like this era of her reclaiming that she is a person who is more than just what the public thinks she should be, as in what she had put out to the public up until that point. And instead, to me, it was kind of like reclaiming who she was and reclaiming that She can do and be whoever she wants to be, and she has the talent to create and be whatever she wants to be. That's kind of how I view this whole era. And I feel like that's a fair statement to make because fast forward to 2020, because Chromatica was released. Chromatica was a triumphant return to the drama and dance pop that everyone just knows and loves her for. And it was a reminder that she can do it all, basically, because Chromatica was a fabulous pop album. It was a very strong return back into pop after truly since art pop. That was her first like solid pop album in what, 8 years, 7 or 8 years. And I love this album because I just feel like it was probably musically, professionally, and personally such a huge moment for her. And I love that. I love that for her. I don't know the woman, but I love that for her. So now let's get into my favorite tracks from Joanne that I have listened to for a long time. And the first one of the songs I'm listing, it's probably the top 2 or 3 that I really have listened to the most. And that's Diamond Heart. I think Diamond Heart is fabulous because it was a very solid intro as to what you could expect from the rest of the album. And it was probably a song that scared some people when they first heard it. Like, what is this, Lady Gaga? But for me, it was exhilarating because her vocal was so strong and intense and powerful, but also I loved how prominent the drums were on it and just the guitar. I mean, it was more stripped back. It was more of just traditional band instruments happening. Even just the lyrics were like all about just being very rooted and being a girl in the USA. And I love the chorus. I absolutely adore the chorus. I love the melody. I love the line, I may not be flawless, but I've got a diamond heart. I think it's just gorgeous. The next song, Joanne. Joanne, and I wrote this, won't lie, this song made me sob when I first heard it. I genuinely sobbed when I first heard Joanne because the picking guitar is just so sad yet elegant and pretty, and her vocals are in a really good spot. Like, her voice is in a really good spot where it is tender, exactly where it needs to be tender. And even when she sings out, it's a different style of singing out than you get on Diamond Heart. It's like a yearning that's happening, like a sad yearning. And it's so beautiful. And Joanne is one of those songs that the lyrics alone just were so heartbreaking and you could feel it. But then over time, within the last 5 years, the song has taken on like a very personal meaning to me. So it just really hits home when I hear it. But even if you can't relate to the lyrics, you feel the story and you feel the emotion. And I just think it's wonderful for that. John Wayne is one of the tracks on this album, and not the only one, but it's one of the tracks on this album that I think definitely gives you more of that known Lady Gaga flair. If you were someone that was waiting for a glimmer of that on this album, it's one of the few tracks that gives you that, but it does it with also a slight like Western vibe to it. It's like a grungy Western song with a hint of pop. And that's what I love about it, because never in my life have I ever described a song as grungy Western. Next is Perfect Illusion. And I know that this was not the most successful single from this album. And it was the lead single from this album. And people were very underwhelmed by it, which, okay, everyone can have an opinion. But I still really liked it. It gets stuck in my head. It's got a catchy hook. It does all the things a single should do. And yeah, I still listen to it on my workout playlist. Sinner's Prayer is kind of like John Wayne in my brain, except less pop and more just in general country Western sort of sound. But that song for me, it really is the lyrics, and I do like the build that happens in the song and where it gets to at the end of the song. So once again, and honestly, I don't even really listen to like country music at all, but I think her voice just suits it so well, and I just like the pocket it's in, and I don't know, I've just listened to it a fair amount. I do want to talk about Hey Girl, because Hey Girl really does musically just kind of stick out like a sore thumb on this album. But I never thought there would be a song where I have Florence Welch and Lady Gaga singing together. And they are two very powerful voices with two totally different kind of like tones to them. And I think it's wonderful that they collaborated together. And it is a bit more mid-tempo. It's pretty slow. I wouldn't say it's necessarily one that I'm blasting all the time, but I don't skip it if it comes up. And I think it's more so just my general appreciation for both of the people singing on the song that makes me want to listen to it. And then finally, I want to talk about Grigio Girls, because this song is more kind of easy listening, like soft rock, slight pop, kind of a ballad, but not really a ballad. Why did I say ballad? Grigio Girls, I think, is another example of a very revealing song into Lady Gaga's life, because I do know what the lyrics are about. I do know it's about her friend who was battling cancer, who sadly did pass away a couple years ago. And I think I just really appreciated the vulnerability of seeing that she was not afraid to write about it and sing about it, but also just the message of the song with friends in general. I mean, friends that have this bond, and maybe one of them is going through a really hard time, but just showing that you can come together and still have a good time and kind of smile and carry on, essentially. And I just really like the message of that song. And it is an easy one for me to sing along to as well, because it does get stuck in my head sometimes. But I just really appreciated the openness of the lyrics of that song. So there we have it. That's Joanne for you. That's why I love this album. That is why I still listen to this album, and why I feel like this album, for me personally, is a standout in Lady Gaga's library of wonderful music. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked Joanne, especially if you are someone who has been a little monster forever and ever, I really would love to know, because I feel like in my personal experience, truly, I have heard people be a little bit all over the board about their feelings on Joanne. But yeah, I stand by it. I love the variety that it provided. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to this point. And until my next one, bye.